This might be the most overlooked Toyota ever built. And by the end of this video, you're gonna understand why. This car has absolutely no business being this interesting. Most people see a Toyota Solara and just think of a two-door Camry. But what if I told you Toyota offered this thing with a 225 horsepower V6, a factory supercharger, and the kind of reliability that has owners driving them well past 300,000 miles? Today we're finding out why this might just be Toyota's most forgotten success story. Because back in the late 90s, Toyota here had a problem. The Camry was one of the best-selling cars in America, but nobody thought it was exciting. So Toyota set out to answer a simple question: how do you make a Camry cool? And the answer was the Solara, a stylish coupe and convertible that combined Camry reliability, Lexus-like comfort, and surprisingly respectable performance. It wasn't trying to be a Mustang, it wasn't trying to be a Supra, it was designed to be something completely different. And more than 2 decades later, it may have become one of Toyota's most underrated vehicles. So today we're going to find out if the Toyota Solara deserves its forgotten reputation, or if Toyota accidentally built one of the best daily drivers of the early 2000s. Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels, where we explore everything from forgotten classic daily drivers to modern performance vehicles, bringing you honest reviews, car builds, and everything in between. So if you like cars, you're in the right place. So do us a favor and hit that bell and subscribe. Back in the 1990s, Honda had the Accord Coupe, Mitsubishi had the Eclipse, Ford had the Mustang, and GM had the Grand Prix. And Toyota's Camry Coupe was not doing well at all in comparison to any of those, so they decided to make this, the Toyota Solara, to be an all-new standalone model to attract younger buyers and have a sportier design. The Solara first finally came out in 1999 in a coupe variation based on the Toyota Camry XV20. Then later in 2000, it came out in a convertible generation. And just a couple of years after that convertible, in 2004, we got this all-new body style like the one that I'm showing in today's video. And the new second generation made this whole car look so much more beautiful, getting rid of that really angular and boxed-off design and bringing a lot more curves into it, making it look a lot more upscale and high-end for the price point that they were asking. They also completely revamped the interior, making it feel much more modern. And quick fun fact, this was the first ever Toyota product to feature JBL audio, which is still widely used across Toyota products even to today. And getting out of the interior and talking about the design language that they chose to go with on the second generation here on the side, well, I'm not a huge fan of it in the convertible, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think the coupe variation looks fantastic, but here in the convertible, for whatever reason, I'm seeing a lot of Mitsubishi Eclipse. Something with this upper and lower body line I'm just not a massive fan of, but when they do add that hardtop, I do think it looks quite good, and my statement stays the same for the back end. This looks very rounded off to me, a lot like an SC430, and I actually like the way the SC430 looks, but there's something about this that just looks a bit different, and everyone has their own opinions, and mine is, well, I think the coupe looks really good and the convertible just looks a little bit off. But the biggest change going from the first generation to the second generation Solara is what was under the hood. And this was now based on the XV30 generation of the Camry versus the previous. Because under the hood you had 2 engine options. You could get the 2AZ FE 4-cylinder, or the one to get was this one here, the 2MZ FE, the 3.3 V6. The 3.3 had 225 horsepower, 220 pound-feet of torque, and this was the engine to get. And the thing that was crazy is you could even spec some V6 cars with the 5-speed manual, which is extremely rare to find today. However, most of them came with a 4-speed automatic, and later on a 5-speed automatic was added. The V6 here could do 0 to 60 in just under 7 seconds, a quarter mile in just over 15, but there's something that was even crazier that was offered from TRD Performance as a dealer-installed option: a TRD supercharger. And in addition to the supercharger, TRD also offered suspension upgrades, exhaust upgrades, anti-roll bar kits, and a body kit bumping power to 262 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque, making the 0 to 60 time down from 7 seconds to 5.5, and a quarter mile down a full second to 14 seconds. And what's really crazy is with that TRD supercharger, I mean, that's like Mustang GT performance numbers back in the early 2000s. So you could get a drop-top, super reliable Toyota with a supercharger that would be smoking and racing Mustang GTs. That's kind of crazy. But we're not done talking about engines just yet, because it is time to drive the Solara. Now, these engines typically last 250, 300,000 miles. In fact, the one that we're driving right now currently has 214,592 miles on it. So let's go ahead and experience what this thing is like almost 20 years and 200,000 miles later. It is boaty. Definitely has a lot of body roll. This is not a performance-oriented coupe by any means. This is designed to be a comfortable A to B vehicle, and you can definitely feel that in the suspension. There's a lot of body roll, a lot of body sway back and forth. You can feel pretty much nothing in the road, but that's not a bad thing. It's great that you can drive this thing around and it's just comfortable. It just gets you where you need to go. Now, there is something going on with this one though. There's a bit of a shimmy in the wheel. I'm not sure if it's a bent wheel. I'm not sure if it's an extremely out of balance tire, but there's an aggressive shake in either the left front or the right front that is most likely tire and wheel or suspension related. Now let's see what this 3.3 V6 has to offer. There's 40 and 50 and 60. I would say that was about an 8.5 second 0 to 60 is what it felt like. It has enough power to get you where you need to go on the highway, to get up to speed. Maybe not to pass on a 2-lane road. It would probably be a little bit close. You might need that TRD supercharger for that, but it's very smooth. It's a very smooth power delivery. The transmission shifts are effortless. It's just buttery smooth, even 200,000 miles later. And I have to say the same thing about that suspension, even as we get up to speed. Just floats down the road. Very comfortable car. Now the JBL audio back 20 years ago, it still does a pretty good job to today. It sounds nice even with the top down. And another thing about the top down to note is this is not one of those convertibles that you cannot have a conversation with your passenger in with the top down. It's still relatively quiet. It's relatively tame in here. Even with all the windows down, not too much airflow gets to the inside. So they did a good job with aerodynamics even in the wind tunnel back then. I would not go into purchasing this car to think in any way, shape, or form that you can make this a performance car, an autocross car, a fun track car. In all regards, this is nothing more than a day-to-day cruiser, and I am perfectly fine with that. It's a fantastic car for that. And the price point it's in, it's pretty much one of the only cars that's available that has some reliability to back its nameplate. So it's a lot of fun, but it's not a whole lot of fun to drive. But nothing goes without issues. Let's talk about some of the issues with the V6, first of all, after we just experienced driving it. Now, the first thing is going to be valve cover gaskets are kind of a known thing on these, as well as oxygen sensors. And every 90,000 miles, or I believe it's 11 years, Toyota recommends, you need to replace the timing belt. And it looks like this one was last done at 92,000 miles in 2011. It's time to get done. Now, the V6 is the one to go for, but in the event that a 4-cylinder one comes up and you guys are just curious about reliability, those are known for some oil consumption issues and some like head issues where like the threads are screwed up on the heads, unneglected examples that is. So just keep an eye out for that if you are wanting to go after the 4-cylinder, but V6 is the one to get. Now, we already briefly talked about the design of this thing, but I want to specifically talk about the example that we're looking at today because this is a Minnesota example. It's been in the state of Minnesota its whole life, and this one, like we mentioned while driving, has over 200,000 miles on it. So the real question is, how is it holding up exactly going in some harsh climates? Because I can tell this one has seen winters. There's a bit of rust going on in the underside of it, but it doesn't appear to be anything more than just basic surface rust on both the front and rear subframe. Of course, being a unibody vehicle, it's relatively clean underneath, and we don't have anything happening or starting on the body. Now, another thing to keep in mind while shopping for one of these is they were a bit more uncommon than the Camrys of that generation. And as many people that say that this is just a 2-door Camry or a Camry that's missing a door, this is essentially an entirely redesigned car. It has a different bumper, a different rear quarter, a different trunk, different door, different fender, and different front bumper. So essentially every single panel on this car is different than a Camry, so parts can be a little bit more challenging to come across, but there were still a lot of them built, so it's not impossible. Now, other than the minor surface rust, this one is missing a little chrome strip or a design piece on the front of the hood here. It makes opening the hood kind of sharp and challenging. The headlights are a bit foggy, but other than that, I mean, this thing is holding up really well. It looks like the gas cap might have a little bit of an issue here. It still seems to pop open just fine, but it clearly has some issue with the mechanism going on. And around back looks good too, other than once again, a little fog over the taillights. We also do have some paint fade starting on the design trim piece that runs around the convertible top, which is really uncommon to see for a car in this climate. So I can only imagine what it looks like if we were down south a bit further. All in all, the exterior of these things is a little bit interesting looking to some, but the fact that you can find these for under $5,000 kind of begs the question, do you care that it looks the way that it does on the outside when you can get yourself a super reliable convertible for under $5,000? I mean, the one we're showing in this video today is at a very well-known dealership, Apple Autos. Check them out down in the description below if you're interested in purchasing this one. But this one is for sale for under $3,500, and I think that's a really, really good deal for a car that's known to be rock solid reliable. But let's talk about the interior, because obviously the exterior is held up quite well, but what about the inside? Well, there's quite a few tears happening on the seat over here on the passenger side. I'm not too terribly sure what's going on there. I also have a bit of wear and tear going on the driver's side bolster over here. This navigation unit has not aged well by any means. It's pretty poor performing, I'm not gonna lie. But all in all, other than that stuff, it's kind of a cool spot to be. I love the 3 gauges that we have on the top of the dashboard. I think those are fun to look at. And the steering wheel is nice, and it's got like a thick layer of leather over it. So it doesn't really have any wear on it, and it feels really good in the hand compared to the cheap lower trims of Camrys from the same generation, which I actually had not long ago. Check out the video up in the corner if you guys are interested in that. Now, everyone buys this because it has the availability to drop the top, but it's also nice to have, when you have a car this reliable that really doesn't have any performance to it, it's still nice to have a working back seat. So let's see what this one is all about. Of course, I do have the top down right now, so I can't talk about headroom, but I'll put it up in just a minute here so we can experience that as well. And it's actually quite roomy. For a 2-door convertible, being about 5'10", I have multiple inches of leg room between my knees and the back of the seat here. I can even spread my legs out a little bit. Lots of side-to-side room that could easily fit 2 passengers back here, and even a cup holder and a spot to rest my arm for either side that you're on. So I think this is a pretty solid back seat. It's very comfortable in the front or the rear. And also, while we were driving it, that suspension rides so nicely. So this could easily be a nice little road trip car. And I think that pretty much wraps up the interior. That is the only way that you can kind of get out of the back seat, which isn't very convenient, but it works. All in all, I'm pretty impressed with the Toyota Solara. This is a lot of car for the money, in the sense that if you get the V6, the only things you typically need to worry about is general maintenance and a timing belt every 90,000 miles, 11 years, whatever. Watch a few videos, learn how to do it in your garage, and you have yourself an extremely reliable, very comfortable, great road trip car for under $5,000. It is crazy to me how cheap these are. The fact that these are cheaper than Toyota Camrys on the market doesn't even make sense to me. I understand the Camry has an additional door and maybe a little bit more trunk space, but ladies and gentlemen, this is a drop-top convertible, or even a really sporty, good-looking coupe that you can buy for less than a Toyota Camry. And for whatever reason, it seems to scare people away on the used market, and they just have to have a Corolla or a Camry. And I think it's just because the additional production numbers that were out of the Camry and Corolla, and the additional conversations that are had inside of families knowing that those are some of the most reliable cars of all time, even though this is essentially based on one of them, but it has even more luxury features. It has the convertible top, or it's the great looking coupe. It still has a huge trunk with a convertible. Thank you guys so much for watching this video today here on Performance on Wheels. And let me know your thoughts on the Toyota Solara down in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you all next time.